took a while to pop us up this time. So I was like, hello. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to Your Author program. My name is Patty Valdovinos, librarian in Multilingual Collections Department. And I am here today with my colleague, Celia Avila de Santiago, senior librarian at the Junipero Serra branch of the Los Angeles Public Library.
It is our pleasure to host the Your Author series today. Please feel free to use the chat box to communicate your thoughts, comments, and questions throughout the whole program. Also, don't forget to email ecdept@lapl.org. It'll appear right on the screen and also in your chat box. And you will be entered into an opportunity drawing to win a copy of today's book, We Light Up the Sky by Lilliam Rivera.
In today's Your Author program, author Lilliam Rivera will discuss her new book, We Light Up the Sky. Lilliam is an award-winning writer and author of the young adult novels Never Look Back, a Pura Belpré Honor book, Dealing in Dreams, and the Education of Margot Sanchez, as well as the Goldie Vance series for middle grade readers, and the standalone middle grade novel Barely Floating. Her work has appeared in the Washington Post, New York Times, and Elle, to name a few.
Before we get started, we do want to thank our generous donors, the Lenore S and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund and the Library Foundation, for helping the library bring all of these amazing Your Author programs and illustrator programs to all of you. And now, for the moment that we have all been waiting for, super jazzed, excited all week, welcome Lilliam.
Yay! We need horns, like beep, beep, beep. Imagine, that would be great. All right. You're on mute before you start, Lilliam. They like to mute us.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. We're so excited to have you here on this Friday afternoon. It's sunny still. It gets so dark now, but it's still sun, especially because we're going to talk about some eerie stuff. So I know. All right. So thank you so much for being here and taking the time with us. It's wonderful to have you here to get to know more about you, your creative process, and your work with We Light Up the Sky. So before we get started, can you start us off by your favorite quote from the novel?
My favorite quote from the novel. I should have prepared, right?
It's okay. It's okay. That's why you have Celia and me. We will chitter chatter. We'll hype you up while you find it. You find your page.
Don't pick something too scary. Some of us are already having nightmares. So
yes.
Actually, let me see. Wait a minute. I think I know something. Wait a minute. I know.
It just keeps us, on the edge. Just like, what is she gonna choose?
Yeah, the suspense. I'm super jazzed. So excited.
Yes. Right. Okay. Hold on. Ya voy.
No, we can wait. We're excited. I want to know if she's going to choose the quote.
I know that's what some of the stuff that we highlighted. I'm just wondering.
I don't know why this is just one quote, but I feel like it kind of, I think about love, even though this book is scary in a lot of ways, and it's about an alien invasion and these three kids, teenagers, LA kids who don't know each other and are forced to kind of like get to know each other to save the world. Yeah. But I love this one quote, and I'm gonna ask you guys, who do you think said it? Okay.
Oh, okay.
We're getting tested now.
And I know so it's not a quote, but it's from the book. It's called.
Okay.
It's okay. So it starts off with this beautiful boy in front of me is trying to save him, but Luna needs saving too.
I want to say it was Pedro. It was Pedro, right? It's Pedro.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, I like how I whisper it because I'm so scared of being wrong. I'm like, I think I'm being tested on this thing.
It's a total Pedro thing to say, like.
Pedro was one of my faves. I think his emotions, and I think you made a great point where it's like nothing brings you together than an alien invasion, right? With people you don't even know. Like that's
he was just so great and outspoken. Like I loved him. I'm curious, what would his astrological sign be?
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, that's an easy one because Pedro is out there, so he's a Leo. He's a Leo.
That's what I was. I was like, he seems like a Leo. Oh, I love it.
He's very, he's outspoken. He's very, he loves clothes, being in center of attention. He's going to show up no matter what. And so he's very Leo.
I love it.
All right, I see you.
We all need Leos, even not in novels. It was nice to read about a Leo. Like that's the first thought I thought about. It's like, he's a Leo. All right. So, are we ready to start our questions, Celia?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So now
You
we
already
have
got me
actual
stumped
questions.
with the first
I know.
one.
I was going to ask about everybody else, but we'll save it. So, what we were really curious about what sparked the idea for We Light Up the Sky and what the process for you like writing it was, and the publishing and everything. It was a little scary for some of us. Not me. I'm really strong and brave. So
We were not crying or texting each other about how we're going to sleep at night.
yeah, no, none of that. We dealt with it really well. But for other people, just so you're prepared. So what was it like, and how did you get this idea?
Well, I grew up, loving and obsessing over kind of alien invasion stories, novels like Ray Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles, and I read Contact, I read Carl Sagan, I read all of the like kind of science fiction legends, I would say, and Octavia Butler, Ursula K. Le Guin. So I've always wanted to write a kind of alien invasion story, and then made sense to me to set it in Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is my second home, even though I was born and raised in the Bronx, and a lot of my young adult books are set there in the Bronx. So I just felt like, okay, I'm going to write a science fiction story. It's going to be set in LA, my second home, and it's going to, of course, center three brown teenagers, three brown teens who attend Fairfax High School, and then an alien kind of lands in the city and is taking on the body, the face and body of a deceased cousin of one of Luna, and so so that was the inspiration. Really became because I'm obsessed with kind of like those aliens, movies. I watch them all. I watch Invasion of Body Snatchers, I watch War of the Worlds, all of those, movies. But they always have whatever Tom Cruise saving the day. And I know about you guys, I don't think Tom Cruise is gonna save any. Yeah,
no, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm gonna, I need my young brown kids to be the center of stage, to take up all the space. So
yeah, and I think that was what was so beautiful about connecting with them, is that you felt like this could happen to you. I think that's what the freaky part of it all was, that you this was just normalized. Like they were just living their day, and then bam, it was like, oh, because you talk about the Griffith Observatory being there. I think we went there last week, and I was like, well, this is nice. So yes, but
yeah,
I think the Griffith. I was gonna say that Griffith Observatory was the first place that I visited when I moved to LA, and so it really does kind of hold a special place in my heart, because it was like a centered space that I was like, here I could see the city. I could, it felt strangely magical in a way. So it was. Yeah, it had to be part of it.
Yeah, and the connection to the sky and the other warnings and stuff. It was very fitting. So
yeah.
All right. So we know that COVID is involved. The time of COVID takes place in your novel. You mention it. So, and it also has become a part of our new norm currently. So, what made you include it in your new novel?
Well, I wrote this book, or the idea of the book came out, I had written a draft maybe 3 years ago. And then the revisions came into play, and that was during COVID, during the pandemic, during the beginning of pandemic. And so I had to make it wasn't a choice. It was really like, there was no choice for me. I really was going to have this book, and it was going to be set after the pandemic, after COVID ended, and I didn't, I guess I had hopes that it would be ended. What did I know? And but the main thing really was that I really felt this really strongly, that everyone was kind of just like not giving a lot of people time to really mourn the loss that we've had, that everyone has. Like, COVID has really kind of hit every single family, somehow. And so that loss is tremendous. And I just feel that a lot of, we're just so adamant to go back to like, let's go to work, let's get in the office, let's work. I'm like, can we just stop and just really kind of honor the loss that we're continuously dealing with? And so I really felt that with Luna, and I really want to kind of honor that and kind of mark that time, even in a young adult book, even if it's a young adult book that's a science fiction book. I wanted to mark that time in history in a way that it did happen, that it's still happening, you know.
Yeah. And I think Luna's development too, trying to heal, and the rushness of it all really hit me with Soledad's character, right? Because Soledad was like, just get over it. Like, I don't see why you're dwelling in it. But I think one of the important things you just mentioned is it's not only like the mourning of deaths of actual people. I think we all lost ourselves during trying to like, you know, deal with COVID, our emotional like trauma and all that. So reading this book as it was in the past was actually really weird and trippy. And then I read your acknowledgments too. And then you, and so if you get the book, read the acknowledgments. Cause I think I'm like, this is all we need. It's just, cause they did, right? They came out with UFO sightings. And I was like, oh, heck no. She just did not. Oh God, this is no.
I did. I mean, I'm a history, not a history buff at all. I don't know dates and all that stuff, but I think it's important for me to be able to document history in all the books that I write. And so, you know, I'm rewriting this, and then it's like Pentacon is coming out with a report. Like, I'm like, God, you know, I want this to be fiction.
I know, you're like, please. I think we all that, you know, this is why I don't try to read science fiction and like horror, because I'm like, there's something real about this. I just keep playing it in my head. Terrible. Oh man. But I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So you already mentioned that Griffith Observatory holds a special place for you. And the book actually, you know, mentions several different, you know, key Los Angeles locations. Do any of them hold a special significance to you in your personal life? So how did you select which ones to include?
Well, I was just being really selfish because I just wrote around where I live, you know, and I happen to live in the Wilshire area. I happen to live right here in Melrose, like right by Melrose, and Fairfax. Fairfax is nearby, and so then I am, you know, I'm really attuned to the high school teenagers coming in and out, taking the bus in and you know and or driving in or whatever it is. I'm aware of how Fairfax, you know, being a Greek, predominantly like Greek Orthodox Jewish area, has really kind of shifted into like sneakerheads, you know, really expensive sneakers and kind of this urban streetwear. So I'm aware of all these things, like changes that are happening, and I really wanted to kind of focus in this area of these young people who are kind of coming into the area, hanging out, and then leaving, you know, and then going to their separate, you know, spaces, and so so it's a lot of Fairfax and the library and Beverly Center, the mall there, the Grove, all these areas, and then Griffith Observatory being a major part of it, and that whole area downtown, like kind of towards downtown, not specifically downtown, right before we hit downtown. So like Westlake, I guess, is that area. So I was just really thinking about the idea of transportation and taking the bus and having access in that sense. Because, you know, you think of LA, everyone's like, oh no, you need a car, you have to have a car. I know people who live here for years and they never have a car, you know. So I just was like, I really wanted to write about that.
Yeah, you made the public transportation part seem so easy. And I was really excited when I saw that the Fairfax branch made a special appearance. I was like, oh, that's one of our branches.
Yeah, I know.
She
loves us.
I know. I'm like,
well, they know now. So
whoever's watching, you know, shout out to the library. But I think it was interesting that you didn't have it take place in downtown, right? Because I think when we think about these like novels and when people think of LA, it's always downtown. So I thought that was real special. And you also, I think, showed the vastness of Los Angeles, right? For people who don't know of LA, is that it's huge. It's, you know.
It is. I mean, for someone who, you know, I mean, I've lived here for so long, but I'm always surprised with what I find. Like, I'm like, what's this neighborhood? Like all of a sudden you take another turn and you're like, what is this? And it's just it's full of these gems that I feel like, everyone's like, oh, Silver Lake, let's see. They just kind of stuck in this kind of rut. And I'm like, there's so much to see in this beautiful city. So I love to even not even like some of the things I wrote is just like a minuscule of what the city really has to offer,
But it's great to see another setting other than downtown LA. So I really appreciated that too. And then, it's just great.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in downtown if aliens invaded. Are you kidding me?
Either.
I know that I'm thinking about it. It just seems so unrealistic. Why would I be in this city? I mean, maybe if I was stuck there for a while. I just run the other way. Oh God.
Yeah, downtown seems like it'll be hit first. Let's be real.
Exactly. Like those tall buildings.
It's a total target with all those tall buildings. Like they would absolutely hit there. We'd all have a little bit of time to escape. So.
Oh God. Don't freak me out. It's another oh God. All right. So you include different scenes where you focus on style and characters' clothing. Why is clothing such a significant part of the character's development?
Oh, just on a personal level, I love clothes. I mean, I used to be a fashion editor back in the day when I was a journalist, and so I really, I really love clothes. I appreciate clothes, right? Yeah. But clothes also is an armor, and I feel like specifically for Pedro, who really takes into consideration clothes, he uses that as not only as an expression of himself, but also just as an armor, of who gets to use what. And so, we live in this kind of like society of labels and brand names, and that plays really hard in We Light Up the Sky, because they end up in the Beverly Center, which is a high designer brand. You get Gucci, Louis Vuitton, you got all the ones in there, right? And so I love that they invade this space that the three young brown kids invade this space that is not meant for them at all. Like it's clearly that place is not for young high school kids. They don't want them hanging out there for sure. But I love that Pedro is like, well, we're here now, and I'm gonna have to take everything. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I like that the little humorous pieces that you were able to like weave in a very tragic moment was
like
great.
The sarcasm of Pedro was like the best. I mean, but I also made it realistic, right? You always have that one friend who's gonna be, who says witty stuff, and you're like, all right, it breaks the ice in very terrible settings.
Yeah, it gives you that little bit of relief, Yeah.
Yeah. And like we're all, I don't know, like it's part of our. For my culture, it's definitely part of it. Like you have to laugh because you're gonna cry. Like it's like you need that, right? So it's a survival mechanism in a way.
Oh man. Yeah, you cry and laugh, as I do all the time.
I mean,
for sure.
It's but I think one of the lines that hit me the most, or scenes, is that Pedro was, the one that embraced the clothing and the style. But there was a line in the book when Rafa focuses on his sweater, his jacket, right, and he smells it, and I think that line hit me really hard because it juxtaposes with Pedro's style, right, where you have someone in the novel who's experiencing homelessness, right, and his family who is still aware of the significance of the clothing, right, and what that means and how that places him at odds, right, with others in his classroom. So I just, so I also wanted to see if you wanted to expand or talk about how style.
Sure. Rafa is, it's funny because I have a high school daughter, and she reads my books after I finish them, and but after so like not that she's gonna give me notes, but anyway, so she read We Light Up the Sky, and then I asked her, she was like, I'm Team Rafa, which is really funny because I was like, oh, for sure she's gonna be Team Pedro, or no, she was like Team Rafa because she understands him, because he's literally the heart. Like he's trying to take care of his family, and he does not want to be involved
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
He's like, I want to mind my business. I don't want to hear about no aliens.
No, he's
And
like, I don't care.
I don't care, and I need to take care of my family. And he's so we know kids who are like this. We know teenagers who are like this, who are burdened with huge, immense responsibilities when it comes to family life, and then and going to school.
Yeah.
And just eating the breakfast, and all these kind of things. And here's Rafa, who's just trying to maintain, just trying to maintain. I'm going to graduate, and I'm going to do whatever it is, the next thing, just to make his parents proud. And then this happens, right? And then he sort of has to make that realization of who family is, like where this this family is found family. And he's going to have to, his concept of family is going to have to expand a little bit.
Yeah. So that was really, I think the shiftment in that was really cool to see about Rafa, right? The growth in his character, right? Because I think in the beginning you see Rafa as a very like stoic character, and then you see him grow, which I think is very important for us to see, especially in male characters, right? So I think it was cool so yes, I'm also Team Rafa. I'm with your daughter in that.
I can't pick a team. I love them all.
I know. I think I'm gonna say Team Luna. Eventually, it's fine. All three. I think.
All three of them are so great. Like in their own, the way they develop each step of the way is just really, it's perfect, and it's just really. I'm trying not to give too much away, but like it's really great to see how they come together, even throughout the book.
Their styles are so different. Like
yeah. We also, Patty and I, as we mentioned earlier, there was quite a few things that we really wanted to point out. And one of the quotes that we really connected was, I believe it was from Pedro, and it was, "I'm not capable of hiding trauma neatly away like you do. I intend to shout this to the world until they get tired of hearing from me. Instead of pretending everything is all right, show your ugliness and pain, because at the end, who cares?" So that really hit us. Like we both wanted to cry. I almost want to cry right now, but thank you so much for being an advocate for mental health through the lens of a young person of color. Why do you think that it's important for youth and communities of color to openly discuss their mental health experiences rather than hide them away?
Yes, thank you so much for reminding me of that quote. I'm not, I'm a huge advocate for it, because I feel even in my own family life, it wasn't something that, asking for any kind of help was frowned upon in a way. You're supposed to really go to church and pray about it, and and pray harder. Usually the advice I was given.
Yes.
And it didn't really work. So I've been really vocal in the sense, I've written essays about my alcoholism. I'm sober for 20 years, and so I've been open and vocal about that. And then for Never Look Back, my book that came out last year, really kind of solidified that the concept of asking and seeking for mental health. And again, I guess it's a theme that I'm constantly going back towards, because it is, I've written a story, I've written an article many years ago about the high suicide rates in the Latinas alone. Like it's immensely high. I forgot the numbers now, but I was surprised how high. And I was just like, this is an epidemic that shouldn't be happening, so I'm glad that it's like a slowly opening up, definitely now during COVID, like it's like slowly opening up this idea of you have to, taking care of yourself, seeking help, adding the addition, you can pray and you can seek professional help. Like I think it was Bad Bunny just the other day was quoted as saying that in a radio show that he was on. I was like, look at Bad Bunny saying that. Even him, who's famous, who has money, he's like, I am depressed sometimes and I need to speak to someone. So I was just like, it's okay. So that to me is like something that I will constantly be talking about. Like it is okay to ask for help, that we cannot do this alone. No one can.
I really, as once we were done with the book, I was talking to Celia, and as someone who deals with the depression and has been suicidal, I think it's important to see others seek the mental health too. And that's what Pedro's doing, right? So Pedro's that advocate who's also showing how to self-care and be mental health. Like, like he's not he's also advising, but he's also doing, right? And so I think it makes it more attractive and easily more attainable instead of just saying it. And so I think that's why I think Pedro was such an eye-opening, because he was just there and he was showing and he wasn't going to be silenced. And I appreciated this quote in particular so much because I was like, he sees his own value, right? And I think we all need reminders of people seeing their own value and being like, no one's going to keep me quiet. So I really appreciate him in that sense. And you for writing him.
Yeah, yeah. I loved the way that he, the family dynamics were all very different. And I liked that Pedro, wasn't constricted to just his family. He had his chosen family, and that's how he really coped with things and dealt with things. And I thought that was really beautiful to show, because it is important, for youth to know that, if what you have at home isn't working, ask someone or seek out that family wherever it is that you can find it, because it's not always, what we have.
I mean, I think it's so key when you're at that age and maybe like middle grade, or it's like you really start forming these families, these really close relationships with young people who are who could help save you in a lot of ways, So I think that's why I love writing young adult books, because it is, I find hope with these characters, because I know that that young people out there are doing that, are not taking things for, are just being really outspoken about things, and it's really inspiring, but also like hopeful. Like I'm like, okay, the future. It's the possibility. It's okay.
Yeah, no, me and Santa were just talking about how like brave the new generation is. I forget what are they, like Gen X. They're Gen X, right? And how they will legit like argue with their families when they don't agree about like mental health, racism, and then they just. And I'm like, yes, I am hopeful for the future. So
they put it all out there. So
yeah. And we do also want to mention, because we are talking about, mental health and suicide and awareness. The library does offer us resources for you all at lepl.org/teen/balance. They will probably post it up on screen.
The link is also in the chat right now.
Oh, yes. Yes. And so and I think now that we're on topic, I think it's really also important to understand that to find that community that will support you in doing this, right? When I first started going to therapy, someone had to go with me, right? And so I think it's always easier to tell someone to seek the help, but it's also important to be that community for someone and be like, do you need the support for me to go, like, take you to therapy, right? I had someone like walk me into the building. And so I think it's important we're normalizing these conversations on a live, right? All three of us, and so I think it's important to share that as three women of color who've dealt with mental health. So
for sure. I mean, it's the secrets that will take us out, I feel. That's really that's what I believe in. And so if I keep it to myself, then it's just gonna grow and grow until I feel like it's unattainable or it's too much. So I need to share. And then sometimes it could just be like, can I just text you?
Yeah.
This is
I text Patty all the time, just like, having that community is very important.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Just to tell people how crummy everything is. It's the best. We're not bad people. We just have emotions. It's perfectly fine. All right. Before I lose track, because we can talk about mental health, but it's clearly shown in your book, and I appreciate it so much. I wish these are the books that I would have had growing up, and knowing it was okay instead of being so scared of trying to pray harder, right? Yes. Oh man.
Yeah.
All right.
Lighting candles.
Oh my God. Or just waking up happier. I mean, we say this and we giggle, right, as we've mentioned, because sometimes it's not a choice. It's just all right. So for our next question, not that I want to shift scenes or topics so fast, but so there's scenes of people being attacked or dying in your book, which are kind of intense. So was it difficult? I write these because I'm just going through all the scenes, and was it intense to write these? And if so, how did you get past any writer's block or describing it, or how does one write these scenes if you wanted to?
Yes. Well, the intense scenes that I wrote were very what can I say? I was feeling those intense kind of dark moments because we were in lockdown, because of the things that were happening. And I was witnessing, right? We were all witnessing in real time how not only how our government was handling COVID, but we were also in content, like at the same time Black Lives Matter was happening, like at this, like, and then it's not like that movement ended, like it's, obviously ongoing forever, right? But it's just like this moment of, people were in the streets with their masks, and I'm like, we lived this moment, young people were on the streets doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so they were like really, I would say very, like most people were dealing with a lot of darkness. And the way I cope with any kind of stress, any anxiety, anything like this, I write. And so what worked for me was writing about these three characters, was writing about that kind of like those disturbing scenes, because it's such it's history. It repeats itself in this disturbing ways of how violence constantly are being inflicted on young people. And so so I had to write about it. But yeah, those parts disturbed me too.
I laugh because either that or I'd just be crying of fear, but
yeah, I would be sitting there and I'm just like,
I know,
audibly gasping, and it was a lot to read sometimes, but it was great.
Yeah,
really
you needed a break. I mean, that's when you take a break, and then you have to find out what happens next.
But I think those violent scenes, without giving so much away, I think even made me feel a little conflicted. And once you read it, you'll see why but your emotions and what you were describing, right? You were saying, because there was anger, right? Towards, because, the people are inflicting violence towards groups, right? And so you see it, the aliens, and so the scenes, I'm being very vague here, so I apologize to people watching, but because we want you to read the book. But it was really interesting to do internal work and see how, like, I felt your words hit me, and I felt the emotions of anger, of frustrations, but also feeling like, wow, I want to be like, was it necessary? But then I remembered these emotions and the anger we felt and we feel are just as important as that. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No,
so I feel like
it does make sense.
Yeah.
And there should be conflict, right? Like it should be conflicting, especially for Luna, who is seeing her dead cousin, this alien cosplaying as her dead cousin, and inflicting violence on a city, and Luna feeling conflicted because Luna is like, well, here's my, like, in a strange way, here's the ghost of my cousin. Is it the ghost of my cousin? Like, how am I connected to her in some way? Am I allowed to be strangely maybe excited about this violence? Like it's a conflict, right? So so all that conflict was living within Luna, and what she had to deal with as she was witnessing these violent acts being caused by this alien.
Yeah, and as gruesome as some of the descriptions were, I appreciate that they were. I know that I had to like take breaks from it, but it's much better than getting something that's sugar coated, or you just say it briefly and don't really go into the details and move on. Because I mean, that's the way it is, right? In reality, there has been some gruesome things that have happened, and you can't just kind of sugarcoat it. And the youth can handle so much more than we give them credit for. So also, thank you for that, for being gruesome.
For just telling it how it is. Oh man. But I think it was also a cool play on, and I just remembered this, that you start off the when they go to Griffith Observatory, not Griffith Park, you mentioned how, they're doing a tour, and this, the space, I want to call it invasion, but I don't know, the space travel thing that's been happening recently. And so there's a mention with Pedro, being outspoken as he starts talking about how, like, so, we're just going to go and colonize. Right. And so And then you have them experience alien. So I think there's also conflict within them trying to be like, so like it's just a lot of conflicting, like, right? It's
I
wild,
mean,
right?
it's funny because it's just, and then we see Elon Musk and this homeboy from Virgin,
I
and
know, I forget all their
I forgot his
names.
name, Bronman or something, and he,
Yeah.
and they're doing this. This is all happening right now, right? And it's just, the Ray Bradbury wrote the Martian Chronicles how many years ago? Like, this is not new. Like, this is something that he not only predicted, but it was sort of like, it's sort of like a prediction of what's going to happen, right? So, I mean, Pedro's just reiterating what we know.
Yeah.
Like, like
That
space
was
is going to
one
be
of my favorite moments.
privatized, like it makes sense, right? That Elon Musk would try to, have like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to spend money on this.
Oh man, and I think that's why I appreciated Pedro's humor and keeping it real, right? Because I think sometimes when we're talking about these things happening, yes, they are amazing. Yes, it takes a lot of money and a lot of things, but that's what he focuses. He's like, we have to talk about the privilege that comes with people doing that and who is doing that, right? And so I appreciate Pedro being like, yes, we got to look at the advancements and, the magical part that's happening and the science that's going to go from it. But also who is really doing this and who's able, who's capable, who's fortunate enough to do this, right? And we see it historically over the years, right? And so when is that going to stop, right? When is it going to become like, it isn't just, rich, individuals doing it. And so
right.
I thought,
yeah. He's definitely out there to tell people.
I know. To tell adults. That's what I loved about it. It was like, I'm going to bug adults so much. And see. Oh, man. It was my favorite. All right. I think you're up, Celia. Right? We get so distracted.
Yes.
We forget, Lilliam.
So this is, we were creeping on your social media profiles, Twitter specifically. And we noticed that you had a dream so this is what your tweet said. The dream I had last night was so upsetting that sometimes I wish whatever dystopian world I create would just live on the page and not in my dreams. So is this about We Light Up the Sky, or can we expect something scarier in the future?
Oh man. I'm sure I'll write something scarier for sure. I mean, I don't have anything really set up yet, but I feel like I've been like slowly taking steps into writing horror because things are scary. And my way of controlling things that I can't control is through writing, and I can control that narrative. So, I can control the story. I can see how it ends, even if I'm scaring. If my goal is to scare stuff, put scary stuff. But my dreams that dream in particular was just a messed up dream. So it's just like, I don't want to write about that dream. I'm just gonna keep it away.
Oh man, nothing like a good book to make you scared of plants. That's what I'm. Your own plants, Lillian. I love plants, and
I do not love plants anymore.
No, I'm just like you got to read the book again, right? We're talking vaguely because I'm like, oh man.
Yeah.
But all right. So before I ask the other question, I just remind people viewing us to feel free to comment in the chat box or the comment box to ask Lilliam any questions you may have. Also share your comments. She will definitely read them. We will all read them if we have a chance. But all right. So for our next question, is so you touched a little bit about this, but what made you start or venture into writing more eerie material? Is this style new to you, or did we just miss something and me and Celia did not creep enough, like we like to say?
You were very good.
Didn't stay up fast enough to be like, did she write any? Who else did she scare?
I know. No, I've written kind of short stories that are a little bit scarier. And I've written for like nightmare.com, I think is one of the outlets that I have like a couple of scary short stories, and an anthology that I did, which is called Tiny Nightmares, that came out last year, but it's flash fiction short stories. And that short story that I wrote in there was pretty scary. But so I think because, definitely during this pandemic, I've read way more horror books that were written by female authors, specifically Latin American, Mexican authors. And so I've been really excited about how women interpret these kind of real world traumas into horror. And I'm kind of fascinated by that. So I think that's maybe something I might want to do. So, I read somewhere that reading horror is really, it's because you have control of it. I can control the book. I can put it down if it's scary. And then I could read it, the excitement again. Okay, I'm scared, but then I could relax. I'm like, okay, I'm okay,
Oh,
so
man.
there's the thrill of it. It's very much like a roller coaster, and so I like that. And then I feel like, okay, and then I put it away, and then the horror is not here. It's just in the book.
I just think about it too much, and then I'll like creep in my dreams, and then I'm just like, what? I can't.
But that's the perfect description, because that's exactly what I would do. I would read a little bit, and then I was like, oh, this is a lot. Let me just I'd come back to it later, because I want to know what happens.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, for the books that you mentioned that you were reading from Latina authors, is there anything in particular that stands out that you would recommend?
Oh, yes. Do I have it here? I always have my books near me.
Me and Celia have a tendency of just making people pull out books all the time, and I'm sorry.
I know. Next time we'll ask you to bring your 5 favorite books to show.
Just bring your bookshelf close to you.
I know, it's right here. No, it's I do have a book, and it's called. This is I have 2 books. One is called "Tender Is the Flesh." And I don't have it right in front of me, but that I don't know the author's name. But the one that I really is called the one that really was powerful was Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melcher. This is adult, so it's not young adult. So take note that it's not for kids. But Fernanda Melcher's book, Hurricane Season, is thin, but it's so relentless. And so good. Thanks for posting. Yeah, so Tender in the Flesh is hard. I won't lie. That's a tough one to read, but it's fascinating. But Hurricane Season was just really amazing. Like, I was just like in awe of these authors just really going for it, and not holding back. And yeah, I'm kind of interested in that.
You're selling, horror in a very cool way. I'm a wimp, as Celia likes to say, or just like scaredy. Like, I'm just, but I am very curious about horror and how it comes, like how people gain that like imagination to write such, invigorating like worlds. And so now you're just making me more curious. And I think your book was, the first dystopian novel that I've read as an adult, or actually anytime, because that's just not my style. So you've, I think, ignited something in me where I'm like, okay, I think I'm brave enough. I think I'll let you know.
Brave enough. We are brave enough, Patty.
I don't know.
This is you had The Baby Step as my book, and then now you did.
And then I don't sleep, and I'm like emailing you, Lilliam, what have you done to me? I have a rule whenever I watch horror movies. If someone makes me watch them, I'm like, fine, but I have to be able to go to sleep first, and you have to stay up and wait till I'm passed out. That's my rule, and then I'll watch.
Wow. I only watch them in the daylight.
Oh, girl, I can't. Oh man.
I taught a class just yesterday, and it was about horror, about writing about horror, but also about trauma, and trying to find ways about writing those kind of things in your work. And everybody was really happy that we did it during the day.
Yeah, imagine. People have wild imaginations. That's why I was like, I don't know. Like, did you people? See, I don't even have words to describe it. All right. Okay. I think you're next, Celia, right?
Yeah. So for your audiobooks, I know you mentioned you had just done like a reading for another piece that you had worked on. But when you choose audiobook narrators, how much say do you get in that, or if any at all?
Oh, I, I get asked for my opinion, and so and that's always nice. No, there's specifically one the actress or the voiceover actress who's reading "We Light Up the Sky" also read two other of my books, Almari Guerra, and she has read the Education of Margot Sanchez and Never Look Back, and now she's reading "We Light Up the Sky," and so she's Puerto Rican, lives in LA, and I love her. I love her work. I do. I love the way she's able to kind of capture different voices, and so I'm really excited that she's also going to read. She's read "We Light Up the Sky," and they ask me, who do you want, and I try to really work very hard that for me it has to be for the most part a person of color, and of course it has to be again a brown person.
Yeah.
And so it's important. For Never Look Back, I wanted a Dominican Afro-Latino to read it, and they found someone, and so they do ask, and that's always really great because sometimes they won't. But I've been lucky. I've been very, because I'm very upfront as Pedro.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's important. I'm glad you are upfront about that and ask for that, because it is very necessary, right?
Yeah,
and I have listened to some of the previous audiobooks for your book, so I'm excited to know that the same person will be reading. So I'll have to.
She's amazing.
Venture to it again.
I was listening to it earlier this week, and I was like, "Oh, this is so nice." I'm like, it's nice to know like someone who is familiar, and she's great. I don't have to really like, oh, how do you say this word? She knows.
Yeah. And so do you get to hear the audiobook once it's completed before anyone else does, or do you just hear it with like all of us?
They usually ask me, oh, can you tell us how you say this name? Or, I'll do an audio of it. I'll tape myself saying, oh, this is how you pronounce their names, or this is, and then I just let them do their work, and then eventually I'll hear it. So I'm sure I'll get one sent to me next week or something. But I was listening to the sample that's online, and it's really cool.
Oh my God. It's like double the scare. Imagine someone just, oh God, I can't picture it. I'm gonna do that.
I'm excited. I didn't hear her read the scary part, so I'm like, oh, I'm like, now I'm interested.
Right? Well, because people have different, audiobooks are beautiful because they have, every person who does one has their own storytelling way. And I think it's really cool to see. It's like it's a new art form, right? It's a different art form, and so I'm excited. Now I feel like I need to listen to it. All right. So as we talk about your new book, We Light Up the Sky, do you have any secrets that only a few people will find in it that you wrote?
Oh, in the book?
Yeah.
We Light Up the Sky. Oh. Secrets? I don't think so. I know Pedro works at In-N-Out Burger. I really like In-N-Out Burgers. And I assume I know what I'm talking about when I wrote about it.
Damn, you got the order wrong. Imagine, that's all we need.
Right?
Oh God.
It's like, no, they don't do that. But I've eaten a lot of In-N-Out Burgers.
It's great.
And there's no secrets in there. It's that everything that I wrote, I do my research, obviously, and even when I was trying to think of what the alien visitor would look like, I imagined a lot of different. I looked at different documentaries on animals, and but mostly like aquarium, like underwater animal, fishes and octopus and how they move, and because all that stuff underneath, underneath in the water, like that's all alien to me. It's like another world. And so I spent a lot of time watching that, and then no, that's like, I don't think there's any secrets. I don't know.
Cool. And then rumor has it though that there's a playlist that goes along with this, right? So
there is. It's, I think I have it public, and it's probably under with We Light Up the Sky. I don't think
it's like private.
No, it's on Spotify, and I'm sure most likely Bloomsbury will also post it on their Bloomsbury Spotify list. But the music, because I'm always listening. I don't listen to music when I'm writing. I'm pretty quiet, but I always make a playlist that sometimes will help me get into the space of the reading. And so then I would just want to, so I have a playlist, and a lot of it feels very LA, the music, I don't know, the music in there just feels very LA kind of UFO music. I don't know.
It's all we need. Oh man, it's my vibe. If aliens ever attack, I'm just gonna put your playlist on. Oh god,
I'm so excited to listen to it.
You have to let me know what you think, because it's a different type of playlist. It's not like compared to my other, like Never Look Back and the Education of Margot Sanchez, very New York or reggaeton or salsa.
Yeah.
Is very, but this one has felt very LA to me. So you'll have to let me know.
Intrigued. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll tweet at you. We'll message.
Yes.
So we do have some audience questions. So don't forget to put your questions in the comments. We're going to go through a couple now. The first one we have is from Maria Novoa. So can you recall any books you read as a young adult that impacted you positively or negatively?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Negatively. Well, I guess growing up, I would say like one of the first books that maybe I read, I feel like we all did, was I didn't start reading any person of color really until I got to college. And so when I finally read Sandra Cisneros, and when I finally read Toni Morrison, that's when I was like, oh, like I was like the possibilities of work that I have not been privy to, like I have not witnessed, and so then I was able to like discover, other authors, or Meg Medina, or or Matt de la Peña, or all these other authors who have been writing young adult, Pat Mora. And so, but when I was young, like I didn't read, and I read a lot. Like, I was a ferocious, like I would read all the time. I was in the library, and I was only reading white characters, white people. I was reading obviously Frankenstein, because that's what I read. I love Frankenstein. And but I was reading those kind of speculative, stuff, vampire, Dracula, all this stuff. As for negative, I don't know. I can't go negative on anything, because I feel like it's like people write a book, and some people don't like it and some people do. And even if let's say the Bible might have been something negative at one point in my life, I found that the Bible itself, the stories are amazing.
Yeah.
So, as just stories, so that to me is probably, something it's not a negative. It's just, you read a book and then it changes the way you read it later on. Your whole body changes, everything changes, and you might see it differently. So
that's true.
Yeah.
And books, depending on where you're at emotionally, physically, they hit you differently. And then if you reread them too, right, at a different age, I've done that before, and then
totally,
that's always fun. All right, our next question is by Reina Novello, and they ask, can you share any future or current projects you're working on?
Okay, so you know what, I'm taking a break. I'm like, this is like it's shocking. No, I am taking a break. It's I've had a lot of books come out, and I think my well is dry. But I do have a book that might come out 2 years from now, and it's called Barely Floating, and it's a middle grade book. It's another book set in LA. It's contemporary. And it's about a big girl who wants to be a synchronized swimmer. And her feminist mom is dead set against it. And so I had a daughter who was a synchronized swimmer for for a long time. So she was like 7 years old, and she did it for 8 years. So I really love that world. And I think it's a fascinating world. And these girls who were on her team, they were all shapes and sizes, all of them. And mostly were only girls of color. And so I was just like, here's a perfect story. And so hopefully in 2 years that comes out. It's called Barely Floating. So That's the one.
That sounds awesome. I don't think I've read anything with synchronized swimmers in it.
Right? Especially about all shapes and sizes and of color.
Yeah.
When I think about synchronized swimming, it's a very, I think of it as a very white sport, right? And it's
Yes.
not, I think that's why it's so important to make these accessible, because there are people of color doing these sports. And
Oh yeah, for sure.
you just need to
I
read
mean,
about
I saw it.
Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
so that's, I didn't even think about it. Synchronized swimming.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm
All
excited too. I'm going to set a reminder. Our next question is from Kevin Awakuni. So sorry if you already covered this, but can you talk a little bit about your writing process?
Sure. My writing process is lighting a lot of candles. No, I'm kidding. My writing process is
same.
It is. It's basically I try to write in the mornings every day when I'm writing. Like so I work. I check in like around 9, and then I work until like 11, and then at 11 I kind of stop. But in my head, I'm always working. Like I walk around with my notebook and a pen and paper, or I use my phone and if I have an idea or something like that. But if I have a project that I'm interested in doing, then I'll come up and I'll have a notebook. It's funny because I have the notebook here. But this one, I think, was a notebook that I used. It's a Bad Bunny notebook.
Oh my God, I was gonna say that.
Yeah. It was someone on Twitter sent this to me from Puerto Rico, which was like one of my possessions.
That's amazing. Oh,
So
I love
used
those
that
notebooks.
notebook to write this. So I would just come up with ideas like, oh, here's a scene, and I would just write it out in hand, with pen and paper, and I would use that notebook until I felt it was full of like ideas, and then I would get to the typewriter, and then I'll start with an outline, and then I start writing the book. But usually that's how I start. I start with a notebook and just allow myself to have fun and like, oh, what if this happens? What if this happens? Who's this person? And stuff like that. So that's how I usually start.
Did you say typewriter?
Yeah.
I mean, I did, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was like.
That's what it sounded like.
It did. That's why I was like, are you still using it?
No, because I was talking to my daughter the other day. I was like in high school. I took a typewriting class, and I was like, electric typewriter, and my daughter was like, what?
That's why I was like, wow, she types her notes, uses a typewriter, and then I'm like, so when does the computer come in and all this?
Oh, no, I'm kidding.
Okay. I know, right? Still hands in
That's
it.
just how you send it. Someone
Oh,
else.
God.
No, it does. I use a computer.
Okay.
Is there anything you like to snack on or drink while you're writing?
Oh no, I just drink water, and I try not to, because I'm a sugar person, so I will eat a lot of candy, but it's not good for me, so I try not to. I just drink water.
Yeah.
And tea, water and tea, that's it.
Oh God, snacks are dangerous. This is why I don't have snacks around the house, because I'll just sit there and just be like all day. Halloween candy. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes,
Our next question is by Cheap Girly, and they ask, I see plants in your background. Did you become a plant fanatic like most of us during the pandemic, or were you already one before that? And they love your wallpaper as well.
Thank you. No, this is all, I didn't even have an office before the pandemic. The office became possible because I needed a space to work on my book, and the house was full of a lot of people. So like everyone. So this place, so we created this space, and then I did do the wallpaper, and then I added plants. So I became a plant mom, like a lot of pandemic people. But, but it's not, it wasn't like a normal thing for me. I never had plants. And now I'm just like, oh, why is this plant not doing well?
Right? What is wrong with you, plant? No, I just was dealing with one last week. I'm like, oh, I can't figure it out.
Yeah, so I like it though. I love, my house now has more plants, and I'm always like, I want more plants, and everyone's very upset.
I love the idea. As someone who, again, deals with depression, plants are such a cool thing to have because they rely on you to take care of them. And it gives me something to do. So I love plants for that way. And so as someone who lives alone and deals with depression, plants are just like the perfect thing to have around for me. So
I love that. I mean, it is true. Like I do feel, I love having it. I love having the greenery around me. It's like I didn't grow up that way really. So it's kind of nice. So.
I mean, I used to really like plants.
And then your book ruined it.
Yeah, and then I read the book and now I'm not so sure.
She's no. Oh God, it's amazing.
Our next question is from X Chow, and they'd like to know what advice you have for aspiring writers.
Oh, the advice I have is to and really there's no like magic formula. There's no, course you could take. There's not a book that you can use. Honestly, the only way to become a writer is to write, and then you're a writer. So it's like I really dedicate time to my writing, and I've always been that way. Even before I got any books published, is that I would just sneak time. Like, oh, I'm working at this job, and I think I tweeted about this earlier. It's like I would get there early. I would get there an hour early just so I could work on my manuscript or whatever project I was working on, or a short story. And then I would bring my laptop. I would bring my laptop everywhere. When my kid was synchronized swimming, I would take my laptop with me. Sometimes I would do work in the car. Like my car was my office for a long time. So I guess it's like if there's passion there, then it's like you just write, and then you align yourself with people who are doing what you want, and then and I support a lot of authors, and that was really how I started. I was like, oh, who's in town that is going to do a reading? I want to support them. I want to see their writing. I want to learn from them, and that would be my way of even learning about like how do they do it, and so. That's really, I feel like the key is just to dedicate time to your art.
Well, and even in, stalking you on Twitter, I love how you're always, wishing people happy book birthdays. And, my list of things to read is now being built based on your Twitter shout outs. I'm just like, okay, I'm through all of these.
I'm glad. I always forget them. I'm getting bad, but I'm constantly reading. And so I love being able to get new books, and I love like, oh, it's a debut. Let me get a copy of that because I want to read it. And I love when people recommend books to me, and so I'm always eager to recommend books to people.
And I think that's what's great. And also I think we've had these conversations before about how it's so important for authors to make themselves accessible to individuals because of that intimidation with writing, right? But I think authors, when we have you on board and when we have you visit, you all make it seem like a normalized thing, right? Like anyone can write. You can take notes on your phone, you carry your computer, a notepad, right? So I think we appreciate you. Yeah, there you go. That'd be kind of hard to carry though. Imagine, like, let me just bust it out.
There is a way.
There is true. It's true. Do you even sell typewriters?
I love that I brought that up. It was because I was having that conversation.
I'm never gonna let that go now. I'm just gonna be like,
awesome.
I my typewriter. Oh, it's the best. So, but we thank you for making yourself accessible to us, because I think growing up, I never thought like the possibility of possibly being a writer could ever happen. But now I feel like the more we talk to authors, the more I feel like a lot of people are like, yeah, you can definitely write. You should write. Everyone has a story to tell. So we thank you. We're thankful for you.
Well, thank you.
All right. Our next question. I lost track of all these questions. Oh, it's from Maria Novoa. And they asked, do you teach a writing class for teens? If so, where can we get more info?
Oh, I do not. I do not. Sometimes I'm scheduled to do so for sure. And it's happened before. Like I think last summer I taught like a science fiction fantasy book writing course for teens, and that was all online, and it was really fun. So I don't currently, but sometimes I do. So you could always check on on my Twitters, I guess. We'd make
gonna get a lot more people, right? Just everyone's gonna follow you and just creep. It's okay.
It's okay.
Oh, yes.
So the next question is not book related, but it is a good question. So what is your favorite restaurant in the Bronx and your favorite restaurant in LA?
Wow.
Not In-N-Out.
In-N-Out's amazing. It's a restaurant.
No, it counts. I'm just, a different one.
My favorite restaurant in the Bronx. Man. It's funny because I go to the Bronx a lot. I've started to go back again. Not from the pandemic, obviously I couldn't, but and we ordered from like this Salvadoran. I think it's a franchise called Pio Pio, which is really good. And there's also this place called Margaritas. I think that's in the Bronx where my parents live, and that's like Puerto Rican food. And that's really good. Those are two restaurants, right? Because we usually just order and have it delivered. But then Casa Adele. All right, one.
It clicked. There you go.
Casa Adele is a Puerto Rican restaurant in Lower East Side that's been there for a long time, and it's Puerto Rican food. It's a small spot, and it's so good. It's so good. And then in LA, I'll do the Puerto Rican food too. There's Mofongos over the hill, and that's a small spot. And there's a new spot which I haven't gone to yet, and it's a Puerto Rican restaurant that just recently opened. They used to have a food truck called what was it called? Triple something. Anyway, they just opened a new restaurant which I haven't checked out, but it's like by like Little Tokyo. I'll let you know if it's good, because I might go check it out.
Definitely let us know.
Exactly. We have something to do this weekend. There you go.
It's Puerto Rican, so
I know. Fun. All right. Our next question is by Kevin Awakuni, and they ask, can you talk about how it felt to win the Pura Belpré?
Oh man.
What were you doing? Always my favorite time.
What I was doing was I was hanging out with my kids. I have two daughters, and we were about to do a dance party, because it's what you do on a Saturday during pandemic.
Same,
right?
Right.
So we were, and so someone kept calling my phone, and I was using my phone as music, and they kept on interrupting us, and I was like, "Who is calling me?"
Yo, man.
I was like, and then finally I answered because I was like so annoyed, and then they said, "Oh, this is is this Lilliam, and we're been trying to get a hold of you, and this is American Library Association." I was like. And then they tell me the news, and then I get off the phone and I literally start crying. I just burst in tears, and my kids are just staring at me like, what is going on? what is happening?
Like, who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Like, they were like, what is happening? And then I explained it, and then we continued on our dance party.
That's such a sweet story.
It's beautiful. I will say that your acceptance or your speech for the video was really great. Like, I loved how you were just like casually with your plants, and you were just like, oh, hello.
You're like, you're welcome in my house.
I really appreciated that you liked it, because I told my kids, please help me with this. All right, we're gonna do this, and then they're like, okay.
No, I loved it. I was just clapping at my screen.
Oh.
So it was great, and your whole speech, as a whole, was beautiful, and I definitely cried a little bit. But yeah, I always remember that. Hello.
See, those are the plants that you don't see that I'm like, they're in front of me, they're nice. They're nice plants.
They're nice plants. They're not gonna like wake up and not even gonna say what the plants do in the books.
I know.
All right. Well, we thank you so much, Lilliam. So we're done with our questions, but we have one more thing for you. So now we're going to play this or that, or what we like to call rapid fire questions, or a mixture of both. So this is just for fun, and it allows us to learn a little bit more about you. So we'll ask you something really quickly, and then you tell us what you prefer really quickly as well.
Yeah, okay. Don't think about it at all. First thing.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Scarface or John Wick?
Oh man, John Wick, of course.
That's true. Bad Bunny or Caliuchis?
Bad Bunny.
I know. She has a notebook. Oh. She has a notebook.
Oh, so hard.
Favorite word?
Favorite word?
Yeah.
Oh. Híjole, which is a new one for me.
That's a good one. All right. Favorite Latina rapper? Rappers or rapper? You can only choose one.
Oh man, it would have to be Ivy Queen. But I know she's reggaeton, pero Ivy Queen is a woman.
She is. Her nail game is my favorite.
Flowers
Yes.
or plants?
Flowers and plants. I mean, yeah.
I know.
As you see.
Oh man, peanut butter M&Ms or peanut M&Ms.
Oh, peanut butter M&Ms. That's all I ever eat. Always.
Those are
Now
my
we know
favorite
this-
too. So
You get a bunch of peanut butter M&Ms mailed to you now. I'm just kidding.
math or astronomy?
Oh, astronomy, because I do not understand the new math that's being taught to these
This
kids.
new math. Oh, I love it.
I don't
They
understand
just
the
change
old
it. They
math,
change,
so.
right? I don't understand math in general, man. All right, observatories or aquariums?
Oh, man. Observatories, of course. Observatories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Renaldo, Andres, Ursula, Tati, or Tico?
Say that really fast 5 times, Celia.
Renaldo, Andres, Ursula, Tati, or Tico?
Andres, the Príncipe de Chocolate, of course.
Oh,
Of course,
I
of
love
course.
it. Nonas or In and Out? Is it Nona? Yeah, it's not Nonas. Nonas, right?
No, it would In and Out.
She
In
is
and Out.
devoted, man.
Favorite Nona's empanada?
I like the Cuban,
Okay.
which they have, which I don't know what's in it, but it's very good.
Hey, as long as it tastes good, we don't know
Yeah.
what's in it. Favorite mood booster song?
Weirdly, it's not weirdly. I listen to old school hip hop, so I'm gonna say Big Daddy Kane or KRS-One because I had a versus recently, and I've been listening to them.
Burst it. That's my favorite. Oh God. Oh.
Okay. El chupacabra or la llorona?
Chupacabra, but that's very, I'm Puerto Rican, so I didn't know La Llorona until I got here. Really?
That's interesting.
So-
I grew up with being more scared of the chupacabras than la llorona. But it's because my family would always tease me with chupacabras.
No, I was more scared of la
Scary.
llorona.
I didn't realize it was regional. I guess it is. That's dumb, right? It is regional. Duh. Sorry, I had a moment. I have a moment. It's Friday.
That was our last one. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lilliam. You have been a blast. I'm forgive you for all the nightmares. And thank you all for joining us today from home. We really hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Lilliam Rivera. Please remember to visit lapl.org to read more books by Lilliam. And remember that our next Year Author program will be on Friday, November 5th at 4 p.m. Join us as we chat with illustrator Lynn Reisling as she discusses her work on the board book, A is for Acorn. And on Friday, November 19th at 4 p.m., join us to meet young adult author Brandy Colbert as she discusses her new nonfiction book, Blackbirds in the Sky, The Story and Legacy of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Thank you all so much for attending our virtual Year Author program. We cannot wait to see you again next week and have a lovely weekend. Thank you all so much.